Good morning, good morning, good morning. What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing this morning? JT here with another Xtrades FOMO live stream. Hope you're doing well. Let me get my screen sharing going here. Go. All right, let's see who all's in the mix this morning. I feel right. That's pretty good, Tony. I dig that. What's up, man? How are you? Good morning. Good to see you. What's up, Mamidi? Hope you're doing well. What's up, new trader? What's up, Tony? Navy Plum. Good to see you all in the mix. I see JD's just joined. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Apparently, Tony's having either a very good or very crazy. I feel like I would find my dog sleeping like that. That looks like about something he would do. All right, what's up, YouTube? Hope everybody's doing well over there. What's up, Discord? All right, let's go. Let's dig in. Let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing here in the markets, and then we'll get to some excuse me. Gonna get a bearing of what's going on with the markets in general. Gonna take a look at some of our existing trade plans that we've done over the weekend and over our past couple of live streams. And then, of course, we'll get to working on some new trade plans here live together this morning. So, with that being said, I hope you all are ready. I hope I'm ready. Let me get my a little water, little coffee, little water. Get the old vocal cords warmed up here this morning. I guess maybe that's something I should start doing instead of like this being the first words I speak in the morning to anyone other than my dog. All right, so let's dig in. Let's go. What are we looking at here on ES? Things are looking kind of healthy. And I say kinda with a extra emphasis on the kinda. um, Overall, we have continued to push to the upside. We're generally keeping the trend bullish on NTS. We do have the 200 and the 333 SMAs back in bullish mode, both heading to the upside. 200 coming up with some confluence here with the NTS key buying pressure just above 55.61, which is a key support resistance level. Remember, we've talked about this one several times. We've recently reclaimed it. It would be really nice to see some back testing and some holding of this before we get super bullish or start looking at kind of going back into full buy the dip mode, at least in the near term. So we are seeing some pullback here. We might finally get a chance to see if 55.61 will hold as support or if we slip back below that. 200 SMA again just above that. But the one thing that I noticed going through my charts this morning here on the daily chart with ES, we did break out to the upside from the NTS sell pressure. However, we did run right into the 333 SMA, and it looks like so far a pretty solid rejection off of that moving average. So kind of keep that in mind overall if we're thinking about bigger picture here on the year. If we do see this pullback continue, essentially it's kind of looking like still lower highs on the year so far. Higher lows, right? So we are kind of trying to build a little bit of a base, but also lower highs, right? We got a high here back in February, high here in March. If this winds up being our high for May, this is not kind of a great bullish trend. So, it's a little bit all over the place. I know we've talked about 2022 a number of times as kind of being a benchmark, I guess, probably for lack of a better word for it, as far as some of the things that we could expect to see as we go through the motions here in 2025. We've seen things like this back in 2022 where we'll kind of get this sort of a false breakout. Looks like things are moving, pretty well, and then we hit some kind of key level or key indicator. In this case, key moving average there at the 333, and we tend to just kind of stall out and pull back and potentially make a new low of the year. So, just keep an eye on things. Again, I'd say as long as we hold 55.61 on a back test, things are looking good. I would say, keep it by the dip mode as long as that takes place. If we lose 55.61 and lose it, I guess pretty rapidly, or we don't even get one good clean back test of it and get a bounce off of it, that to me would be a very bearish look. So again, keep an eye on that 55.61 level. I think if we can get over 57.40, things do look good to continue higher and potentially go for that 200 SMA confluence up there near 58.70. So again, just keep a watch, keep your eyes on things and some of these factors as we make our way through the next quarter of trading. And as we look to execute some of these trade plans, use these factors to kind of set your bias and know whether or not you're going to be looking for buy the dip or short the rip opportunities. So let's get to some of our existing trade plans. Webull, this one I did over the weekend. This was in the member selected tickers category. This one is breaking down, it looks like, and back testing that put entry as resistance. As long as we stay near and below 1465 going into the open here, this one could be a good short coming out of the gates here this morning. So keep an eye on it. Again, that 1465 being the key resistance that we would want to see hold for this short idea. And then just playing down through the plan levels there. PT1 at 1336, 1208, and 1102 to the downside. But right now, Webull looking like it is wanting to pull back. Especially breaking down below and showing signs of resistance there at the put entry, break below, back test, that tends to lead to a move down. Can we take a look at Duolingo? Sure we can. Happy to take a look at that. Suck my stock. One of the funnier Discord names I've seen, by the way. So that was Webull. Google was also on our member selected tickers from over the weekend. This one does look like it wants to break down here this morning. Let's take a look at this on a slightly smaller time frame. What's up, San Andres? Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. And good morning to everybody who's joined. What's up, Jay? Good morning. Good morning. Good to see you. Over on the YouTube side of things, good morning to everybody who's joined since we got rolling here. Sorry if I haven't been able to keep up. So Google does have the 333 just below here. Overall bullish momentum there on those moving averages. 161.92. I'd want to see that get bought back up and hold above. Perhaps even a break back above and a back test. This could be a potential opportunity to take a shot at a bounce play on Google, just with that little bit of a confluence just below. But keep your eyes on this one. It does look like it wants to break down. I'm just kind of thinking through some alternative approaches to Google, but yeah, overall, it looks like it wants to take a shot at PT1 to the downside. Should be really good support there at PT1. So I would definitely scale out heavy there. So keep an eye on Google. This one might continue to break down, especially if it holds below 161.92 going into the open. TQQQ, or the 3X leverage NASDAQ ETF. This one's gapping down with futures this morning. Coming up on key support there at 55.88. Does have some confluences there around 55.88. So again, kind of goes back to that mixed bag. This looks okay so far, whereas, like Google and Webull, for example. Good golly, excuse me. Both looking a little bit rough this morning. Get some more of that coffee in. So keep an eye on 55.88 to potentially hold if we see signs of support there. TQQQ could be a good buy the dip opportunity off that 55.88. If it breaks below that, I certainly see PT1 and very, also realistically PT2 being high probabilities in the not too distant future if we do break below 55.88. Apple, this one was from last Thursday's live stream. No, I think this was last Tuesday, wasn't it? Last Tuesday or last Thursday? Wait a second. That looks like it's too far back. I think that's why that looks weird to me. Let's see. Hang on. No, Apple was a Tuesday live stream. I don't know why I have that line there. This should be right. Tuesday pre-market. Yeah, so we did this one right here. Okay. So Apple has broken down to the downside. We saw this last Friday, broke down, came back, gave us a back test right of that put entry level. Let me get this screen lined up a little bit better. Broke down, back tested that put entry, right? That's a good sign to look for that short continuation to the downside. It certainly got that yesterday going down to PT2. Trying to hold some there, but looks like PT3 is not far away. Again, Apple had pretty decent earnings, but overall highly concerned about potential tariff impacts. I think they said something like 900 million, a $900 million hit to their bottom line, or to that they're going to have to try to figure out how to pass on to consumers, that they anticipate from tariffs the way things are currently going. So, Apple's kind of really in the crosshairs of this whole tariff war, with their dependency on China. So we'll see how that plays out. But not surprisingly, seeing Apple playing out to the downside, playing out bearish due to those factors. ASTS Space Mobile. This was I don't know why I've done such a bad job of marking this would have been a last Tuesday live stream. And this one did have a really nice pump the other day, last Friday, ran right up to PT1 for calls. Has rejected and pulled back since then, trying to catch the 200 SMA here as support, but overall slipping below that key buying pressure there on NTS. And it looks like, to me, if it loses 23.36, this one could be a good short to the downside for continuation from there. What's up, K Money? How are you? Hope you're doing well. What's up, Amit Out? And everybody else who has joined since I've been staring at my charts. Hope you all are doing well. So again, things are moving sideways here on ASTS between our call and put entries after tapping PT1 for calls last week on that really big pump day. I think they announced that they maybe had another partner, I think, for their mobile or for their satellite service. Anyway, ASTS, keep an eye on 23.36. If it breaks below that, this one could pull back even further. Below that 333 SMA confluence there, at least on the 30-minute. Let's take a quick look at the hourly. Yeah, kind of seeing some confluences and some agreement there as well. That's an interesting, let me make a note of that. ASTS 1 hour. Just looking at some things where I might want to just double check my calculations here on NTS, make sure things are holding. That's kind of an interesting flip that maybe should have held as bullishness. So I want to look at that volatility calculation in there, but that's for me to figure out later on. All right, Chipotle from last Thursday's live stream. This one did give us a little bit of a peak to the upside, didn't quite continue the break to the upside, did get stopped at that 51.75 level. I'm not sure, maybe I was just marking that as a interesting high that I want to go back and look at, because it's not part of my overall levels here on Chipotle. But coming up on some key support here, with the NTS buy pressure, 200 SMA here on the hourly, 333 just below. This one, if that Chipotle, if this 49.34 is holding going into the open, could take a very small lotto size shot at buying some calls out of the gate to see if overall that holds. If 48.97 gives way and we open up room to start playing out this put side of this trade plan, I'd say cut that idea. But really kind of interesting confluence of support there from a indicator standpoint on Chipotle hourly chart. And then last but not least, IWM. This one is coming up on key support here, especially as we look at it on the 30-minute. Has the 200 SMA coming up right here at 196.54. Key buying pressure on NTS. This looks like another great buy the dip opportunity. As long as that's holding going into the open, take a shot at some IWM call contracts. If 196.54 gives way, get out, right? So give yourself a very small risk window to let this play out. Keep your position sizing small, but I do like it as a kind of similar buy the dip out of the gate lotto type setup. All right, so let's get to some new trade plans. That's what we're really here for. Those are our recaps. Got those knocked out in the first 15 minutes. So let's go through. Could we take a look at QQQ or PLTR? Sure, Tony, we can take a look at one of those. And then we've got Duolingo and another Palantir. What happened to Palantir? Well, I don't know. Let's see. I've had two people ask about that one. That was also on Tony's potential tickers to take a look at. So let's see what's going on with PLTR. They just had earnings. I know that. In fact, yeah, that was yesterday after hours. Now, I don't always trust uh, the um, come on. I don't always trust the trading view earning stats down here. Sometimes they give you some very off numbers. So let's see what old Chat GPT thinks about Palantir's earnings that were released last night. See what ChatGPT says about it. But PLTR did report earnings again, assuming these numbers are right, beat top and bottom. I know they've been picking up a lot of government contracts, so I am kind of surprised to see this one pulling back. Let's see. Key financial highlights. Revenue up 39% year over year. EPS was in line, 13 cents. Net income was good, doubled from the previous year. Government contracts revenue, full year guidance raised slightly, looking at 36% growth year over year. Expecting serious growth despite strong financial performance, experienced a decline. See, I think that's probably the big factor here. They currently are carrying a price to earnings ratio of 593. That is just excuse my language, that is fucking insanely high. So that is definitely probably a big concern. They do some work globally, and that did see a decline on that side. Yeah, I think the big concern here, just kind of doing the quick Chat GPT guide ER breakdown. I think the big concern here is that price to earnings ratio. It is just so hyperinflated that if they aren't absolutely like, doing multiple 100% beats on top and bottom with the current price to earnings ratio that they're carrying, I think everybody, there's probably a sell the news event, essentially. Long story short. So that's my take on what happened to Palantir, and what the outcome of that earnings report looks like. Palantir, PLTR. Yeah, well, you just get used to pronouncing it after a certain point. What's up, Chris? Good to see you, brother. Hope you're doing well this morning. All right, so we know what's going on and why it's going on. Again, overall, things are pretty rosy, pretty positive there from the earnings report data metrics standpoint. I think the major concern for the markets right now is just the really massive price to earnings ratio that it's carrying right now. I mean, that's huge. That's one of the bigger ones I've seen ever. So yeah, Palantir definitely needs to cool down some. That's for sure before it starts to look really attractive. But overall, earnings was good. Market sold the news, so let's kind of figure out what that means and how we want to handle that going forward with PLTR. I'm going to zoom this out a little bit. I want to get a better sense of really. Oh, well, there you go. NTS catching that dip perfectly there on the 4-hour. Yeah, this is that last run to the upside that I wanted to take a look at to see if we can't figure out where this starts to look like a good short. And I think it starts to look like a good short right about here at what is that, 111.25. Now the first move's not going to be massive, but I think it gives us a good start. Or we may decide to flip this to being our entry, and we can flip 111.25 to being a stop loss. Let's see how this plan stacks up, though. I do think that there is a bigger move opportunity down here to 104.03 below that. So this could be, good. Get started, average up, start small and average up into this if we break below PT1. Third price target. It's right around, let's see. I'm gonna take a look at this little area. Yeah, right through there. Chris, your mic is hot, brother. There you go. Your door is ajar. All right. I'm kind of torn between, let's go with 158. Sorry, I was kind of torn between 99.33 and 158. But I like that 158, especially with that 333 SMA coming up just below there. That could stop us from getting to 99.33 by the time the price moves there. Yeah, I don't know, man. Discord just wants to keep you on your toes, brother. All right, so question is, do I really like this setup? Or is that getting us in at a tricky spot for where we've got this put entry? The answer is I think it might be. If we've got a good stop loss average down, it's probably sitting, now it could be a little bit lower, like right here. Yeah, at about 113.19. All right. Let's go for it. I'm going to leave this as it is. We're going to use this 113.19 as our stop. So it's a pretty tight window. Also remember, generally speaking, 3-day rule post earning. As long as I don't pull a Shannon Sharp. I mean, that shit'll land you in some hot water, apparently. Then they just start coming out of the woodwork. So, 3-day rule post earnings is always something I like to try to follow. So just keep that in mind. I do think that this level could be a little bit more like right there. And again, we've had sort of minimal price data, price action up in this range for Palantir, so not surprised if some of my levels need a little adjusting as we go on through this. I don't want to be too aggressive on buying the dip post earnings with the earnings sell off and the P to E ratio that we just talked about down at these levels. I'll be surprised if this one makes a rapid recovery. I think selling off after fairly strong earnings and guidance is a sign that the market wants to see more value on the share price. There is an interesting level right up here. Sits right about there. All right. So I think what we could do, I'd want to give this one a little bit more room to sort of make sure that it looks like it wants to continue higher. For me, it would need to break over that 118.50 to show signs of that. It's going to be it's going to be a little bit better, but right at a 1-to-1 risk reward, getting to PT1, so the kind of the base risk reward on this plan. So keep that in mind. Start small, scale in. Let's see, that's all-time high, isn't it? 125, yeah, that is the all-time high. Okay. So we're pretty much right there at the all-time high there at 125.26. Interesting wick that printed way up there. Got some fib extensions that I think are a little bit, well, I'll go back and take a look at those. But for now, I think that that's a good target as this first fib extension to the upside there at 128.83. So let's map this out for our Palantir trade plan. All right, we're looking for a break over 118.50. First target at, 121.28. 124.43 and 128.83 with a stop loss average down at 115.87. Break below 111.25, 108.74, 104.03. Again, that's the big move there. And on down to 158 with a stop loss average down at 113.19. Not a shared stop loss. All right, that looks pretty solid. Let's clean this up a little bit. Don't have any other, yeah, I do. That into there. There we go. All right, so this is our, Tuesday live stream. Start to replace the last week plans from last week. Yep. All right, let's get this posted. And over here in Discord. How, well, let's talk about this, Chris. How often has it worked for you? And I'm not asking that with a expectation of you saying it rarely does not work. I'm kind of curious, is, 3-day rules probably could be, okay, probably 5%. All right, well then maybe the 3-day rule exists for a reason. I was going to say, again, some of these rules over time, like, it's a different market now than it was, years ago when I first heard that rule. So who knows, maybe it changed a little bit. But yeah, I would think, after a big catalyst like that, it is good to give it a few days to just let things settle, let the market decide what it really is going to take away from that earnings report and what was shared. So yeah, the ones that I really like are when there's like a really significant beat top and bottom and it still sells off. If it sells down to a key support and that key support is holding going into the open, that is one of the very, few times where I would take a look at breaking that 3-day rule and just go ahead and buy the dip. But again, and it has to be a relatively fair or decent price to earnings ratio. I mean, again, I think that's the big problem with Palantir right now, is that price to earnings ratio is just it's insane. It's crazy. So yeah, 3-day rule, probably a good thing. All right, let me get this posted over in the options watch list. Let me get my message link so we can set our alerts. We're gonna do this on trade plan pilot. Any alert? Minutes 30. Cool. Expiration. Do this a week from today. That's weird. Why isn't it letting me name this? Okay. What's going on here, Trading View? What did it name that then? Trade plan. Why would it do that? Oh, shit. I know what I did wrong there. Ha! My bad. I was like, why does that look wrong? Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's weird. That should give me an option to name that. Unless TradingView has published some kind of weird update. That's right. Yeah. I don't know why it wouldn't let me name that. All right, whatever. Doesn't need to be named, but I like to be organized. All right, so we're looking for this to expire next week. It's Tuesday. Yeah, that's weird. Normally you can name these alerts. I don't know why it's doing that, but doesn't matter. It'll send the alerts to the chat and we'll know what to do. So let's talk through this real quick on Palantir. We are looking for a break below 111.25 that should bring targets at 108.74, 104.03, and 158 with a stop loss average down at 113.19. Again, remember to start small on this one, getting into it to start off with. Scale some out there at PT1 as you tap it for support. If we break below and backtest PT1 and start showing signs of resistance, move your stop up to 111.25, scale back into that trade, and I would say add to it because then you have the better risk reward setup. Here's your new risk reward with that adjusted plan as we watch this play out to the downside. So this is going to kind of visually show you all how this shifts things and why I say start small, scale out, get your break below, back test, and then maybe even go bigger on your position sizing for the next leg down, because your risk reward on that new setup, if we move our stops down to 111.25, we set 108.74 as our entry from where we're adding back into that plan, and then looking for PT2 as our first target. That gives you almost a 2-to-1 risk reward setup there. So again, that's why I kind of like that approach. So again, start with a smaller position size, scale some out. If we get a break below, back test, scale back in. You could even go a little bit bigger than your original position size, but do not violate your rules for position sizing overall. Do not oversize. Just, I would start with like a half or less size on this, scale out half of that there at PT1. And if we get a break back below and a back test and we see some resistance there at PT1, that's when I would scale in closer to my full risk management respected position size for continuation to the downside from there. So that is how I would play that from a scale in, scale out standpoint. To the upside, looking for a break above 118.50 that should bring targets at 121.28, 124.43, and 128.83 with a stop loss average down at 115.87. Those are your Palantir upside and downside trade plans. Let's go. All right. Something happened with Bull popping on the scanner. Okay, let's take a look. Oh, something did happen with Bull. You are right about that. I'm not sure what, but yeah, big spike here pre-market. I'd be surprised if we're seeing that anywhere else. No, that's very specific to Webull. So yeah, keep an eye on that one for sure. It is doing some pumpage here this morning, running right up into that put stop loss average down. All right, yeah, keep an eye on it. I'd be curious to know what scanner are you talking about, Kumar? Is there a particular scanner that you're using for this watch list? Oh, okay. All right, so we went through the Palantir plan. That was that. Then we had Duolingo for my stock. Duo. Or wait, no, it's Duolingo, Duo-L. Yeah, never mind. My bad. It's like, that doesn't look right. Yeah, I swear we've done... Well, maybe not. I thought we've done a Duolingo trade plan in the past. Did just have earnings last Thursday. We are probably just beyond the 3-day rule. Overall, good numbers on earnings, at least according to the TradingView data. Is this all-time highs? Yeah, okay. All right, give me a tricky one. Let's see how it is, but we'll get this figured out. All right, so how do we want to handle this? And I do not have levels on Duolingo, I should say. And I'm not going to get a lot of weekly levels from up in this price range. I like a challenge. Lots of support here, but that's all. Also, probably extremely far removed from where we need to be looking. I need to keep that in mind. This one's very parabolic. Parabolic. Hmm. Yeah, you know what? I think there is actually a pretty decent weekly level there, but that's really all we're gonna get out of it on a weekly chart. And let me just hide these real quick. Just for now, I just want to focus on finding my levels. Not sure. Not convinced on this one. There was a quick little resistance test on this. Take that as a daily level. This also looks good as a daily level. Solid. Not convinced. Interesting top there, but again, not much else I'm seeing. All right, 4 hour. This level, we might actually have on that one some old price data that we can use, maybe? No, never mind. That was it. Yep, never mind. Sorry. That was our previous spike before we made this current high. Okay. This is an interesting level, though. I do like that one to keep on watch. It will likely be a downside price target. Yeah, that's going to be a tricky one. That's okay. I don't mind a little challenge. All right, so let's see. How do we want to put this out? It's got a pretty decent. Let's see. Although this one, yeah, this is not a good. Whoops. Extended hours mover. Doesn't really. And if we have a trend building here on the regular trading hours chart, probably building right about there. Yeah. And it's a little bit hard to really call this a top just yet because it's kind of just now getting there and testing for the first time. But let's take a shot at this. This is really kind of the best we can do. Do think that that did give us an interesting level to work with. And then let's map these guys out. All right. And there is a pretty decent gap to fill to the downside here. Also going to want to keep that on watch. All right, so how are we going to handle this? think we wait. It might be a bit of a wait, and it might be a may never come level, or not anytime anywhere in the near future, but I think we wait to take any kind of a shot at shorting this one until it's in this gap that should take it down to 401.99. Below that, I do like this support here at 372.55. It looks like there's a pretty clear shot down to that. Below that, I think we're looking for this next gap to fill. Puts us a little bit below this daily level. But you know what? I would go ahead. I wouldn't hold this one to the bitter end, trying to squeeze out that last little bit of profitability. I'd go ahead and take the profit here at this daily level. They're at 340.89. Probably close enough to a gap fill that it may bounce there. Stop loss average down. Best thing we've got to work with here is this 0 base fib from our fib extensions, taking us up over all-time high. As far as potential entries to the upside, the only thing we can really look to play is that break over the current all-time high. I would use this flat top breakout as a base that we would need to hold. I wouldn't want to be back below that, playing this to the upside. Otherwise, I think we do retrace further back down to 457. Don't want to hold through all that downside, knowing that upside could be potentially limited. And generally speaking, when I'm doing these fib extensions, after we get that 382, I like to go for the 618 and then the 786. Those would be our price targets. Let's get this looking right. So that's the plan, upside and downside. Let's plug this in. 503.13 down to 532.07, 577.44, and 609.43. Stop loss average down at 480.61. Put entry at 433.11. 401.99. 372.55 and 340.89. Stop loss at 457.77. Separate stop loss average down. Let's turn that on. Let's hide our levels. Oh boy, let's get this extra stuff out of the way. There we go. Let's also hide that. We don't need that for right now. Okay, so this is looking pretty solid. Let me actually make a slight adjustment to this. Is a higher dollar ticker. Gonna need a little bit more offset for these labels to not wind up getting kind of stuck or overlapped with those lines there. Whoops, shit, didn't mean to do that. All right, so here comes your Duolingo live stream plans. And here is also, let me get this in the watch list. All right, so what are we looking for here on Duolingo? We are looking for a break over 503.13. That should give us targets at 532.07, 577.44, and 609.43 with a stop loss average down at 480.61. To the downside, we're looking for a break below 433.11. That should give us downside targets at 401.99, 372.55, and 340.89 with a stop loss average down at 457.77. Let's go ahead and save our indicator template for, Tuesday. Hey, get out of here. Tuesday, live stream plan 2. There we go. Yes. And then let's get our alerts set up. And this can expire next Tuesday. Close of business. All right, so those are your Duolingo and what was the other one we did? Palantir live stream plans. This puts us about 15 minutes out from market open, so I'm going to go get to work on the SPY plan for you all so I can get that posted in the options watch list. So with that being said, I will be back Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so make sure to come back then. In the meantime, as we always say here on the FOMO live streams, plan your trades, trade your plans. Remember, we're looking for profits, not perfection, so keep those wins big, keep those losses small. Go out there and get some green. Have yourselves a great day. I will see you in the chat. SPY plan coming to you here shortly. Take care. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining.